Sharei Good evening, or rather good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Sunday, Yom Rishon. Let's light up the darkness. Special day. 1,711 pages behind us. 1,000 to go. Great to be learning with you, my holy sisters and brothers. Who's in the house on a Sunday? Stephen in New Hampshire, Melissa in Great Neck, Yehud in South Carolina, Paul in the Great Northwest, Shandora in the Bronx, Guy in Ohio, Bella in Florida, Sharon in New Jersey, Joe in the Inland Empire. Please pray for us. The line fire has burned thousands of acres with no containment. I am 2 miles from an evacuation area. Please, God, spare Joe and everyone in her area. May the fire be contained speedily and soon and no further harm done. We say amen. And Marjorie in Georgia, Elanit in Silver Spring, Joseph in Nevada. Elanit says, what a great DAF. Amen. This is going to be really cool and a great time to dedicate a DAF. Yesterday's and today's are dedicated by our very own Sharon Frant Brooks, in honor of the yahrzeits of my grandmother, Tilla Bat Moshe, on the 4th of Elul, that was yesterday, and my mother, Bela Feige Bat Eliezer, and my uncle Yaakov Yehoshua Ben Yecheskel, both on the 5th of Elul, which is today. Please dedicate a shofar blast in their honor. Please, God, let our learning today, which is Leilui Nishmas, for the elevation of the souls of Sharon's grandmother, mother, and uncle. May it lift them just a little bit higher in the world of souls. We say amen. And Sharon, may you and all your loved ones be showered in blessings. And thank you for supporting AT and enabling us to share more Torah with more people around the world. If you would like to dedicate a class, and especially shofar blast during the month of Elul, donate.accidentaltalmudist.org. It really is a wonderful place to give. I'm constantly telling you, set aside 10% of your income, give to the charities that you believe in. So for a moment, let me tell you that Accidental Talmudist is a great charity to give to, because we share Torah with so many people that would otherwise not be learning, not be reached. It's a tremendous bang for your buck. You are enabling Torah to permeate the world in places that it wouldn't have otherwise. Please help us to do that. Donate.accidentaltalmudist.org. Okay, be a little vulnerable here. I'm really having a tough time this year. One of the things I used to pride myself on is my shofar blowing. I felt like I was always ready. I could always pick up the shofar and make a good blast. And I'm just having trouble this year. I don't know if it's because I had an oral surgery, I'm getting older, my lips, something, or I don't know what. But I've been working on it, I'm practicing, I'm hoping that I can deliver for Sharon. So please, God, strengthen me to make a good blast for Sharon and her loved ones. Give myself 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. We'll keep working on it all through Elul. But Sharon, with all my heart. Okay. Let's do it. Very short DAF today. We're doing a single. We do, by the way, have triple-digit temperatures here in LA. I'm not complaining. I'm just sharing what it's like around here today. And God, I have air conditioning. It's somewhat taking care of the problem, but it's being a little, it's meeting its match with the weather today here in LA. Okay, We're picking this up at the bottom of page 76b, and today, with God's help, we'll complete our discussion of Mishna number 1 here in chapter 5 of Tractate Bava Basra, 23rd volume of the Talmud, and get into Mishna number 2. Picking it up, bottom of 76b. The Gemara returns to the issues of acquiring promissory notes. Right? We were talking about how one acquires a ship. That's what this Mishnah is about. But it became relevant to discuss how one acquires a promissory note, right? When you buy a promissory note, what are you buying? You're not just buying the piece of paper. You're buying the right of the holder of the promissory note to receive a debt payment from someone else. And if it's not paid, then you have various liens and legal remedies that are associated with that debt. All those are contained in the promissory note. And if you sell the promissory note, certainly probably you're intending to sell all those rights, but you have to make sure. So the Gemara returns to the issue of acquiring promissory notes. Rav Papa says, one who sells a promissory note to another must write to him, acquire it and all liens on property that are contained within it. Right? So Rav Papa is saying that if you sell the promissory note, you have to specify at the time of the sale that you're not just selling the note, you're selling all the rights that are contained within it. If you don't say that, so apparently if you don't say that, you didn't sell those rights. That's what the Gemara now will discuss. All right, again, Rav Papa says, one who sells a promissory note to another must write to him, acquire it and all liens on property that are contained within it. Rav Ashi said, I stated this halacha, this law, before Rav Kahana, and I said to him the following analysis. The reason the buyer acquires it is that the seller wrote this for him. And this indicates that if he did not write this formula, it and all the liens on property contained within it, then the buyer does not acquire the monetary rights recorded in the promissory note. Rav Ashi asks, why then did he purchase the promissory note? Obviously, he's purchasing it to get the rights that are contained within it. Does anyone require it to tie around the mouth of his flask as a stopper? Right? Did he buy it just as a piece of paper that he would use as a cork around his water bottle? Obviously not. He's trying to buy the rights within it. Why do we require that one state that what's being purchased and sold by the buyer of a promissory note are the rights within it? What else would he be buying? And Rav Papa said to me, yes, it is possible that he purchased the promissory note in order to tie it around his flask, since the owner did not transfer ownership of the obligation recorded in the promissory note. The buyer acquires only the paper itself. That's why it's so important to use the correct formula when you're selling the promissory note. Maimar says the law is that letters, meaning the rights contained within the promissory note, letters are acquired by merely transferring the document to the buyer in accordance with the opinion of Rebbe. Rav Ashi said to Maimar, is your ruling based on a tradition or on your own logical reasoning? And the Maimar said to him, it is based on a tradition. Rav Ashi said, it also stands to reason that the contents of a promissory note are acquired through transferring as letters, transferring meaning handing the promissory note over, that's the formal act of acquisition, as letters, i.e. the contents of a promissory note, are words, i.e. the buyer is acquiring the right to a monetary obligation, not a physical item, and words cannot be acquired through other words. You need a physical transfer of the promissory note. And the Gemara, so where did that law end up, just before we move on? How does one transfer a promissory note to another? Now, according to Shulchan Aruch, the code of law, where the halakhic debate ended up is like this. This is the law. The owner writes in a new document or in the promissory note itself, you, so-and-so, acquire from me this promissory note that records the debt owed by so-and-so and all the liens the note contains. The seller then passes the promissory note with this document to the buyer. In this way, the promissory note is acquired by means of writing and through passing. If the owner does not write this, meaning that formula, the buyer acquires nothing. not even the paper upon which the promissory note is written. And this is in accordance with the opinion of a Maimar that we just read. The Gemara asks, and is it true that documents cannot be acquired through words? But doesn't Rabba Bar Yitzchak say that Rav says there are two types of documents? The first type is where one says to others, take possession of this field for so-and-so, and write the document for him as proof of the sale of the field. So in this case, he may renege with regard to the document, i.e. he may change his mind and tell them not to write it as evidence of the land deal that was already made. But he may not renege with regard to the field, as the buyer has already acquired it. So he may change his mind about what kind of means of acquisition, what kind of legal device will memorialize this sale, but the sale has already happened. The second type of document is where he said to the buyer, take possession of this field, or to his agent, take possession of this field for so-and-so on the condition that you write him a document. Now, if the document has not yet been delivered, the seller can retract his instruction, both with regard to the document and with regard to the field, as the transfer of the field is dependent on the writing of the document. And Rav Chiya Bar Avin says that Rav Huna says there are actually three types of documents. Two are those that we stated above, and the other is if the seller wrote the document in advance. He went to a scribe who was passing through town. He said, write a bill of sale for this land deal that I'm going to do, but when we do it, we're not going to have a scribe available, so I want the bill of sale now, even though we haven't transferred the land. We haven't sold the land. We just want the document in advance. Now, page 77b. And this is like that which we learned in a Mishna on page 167b. That's a very high number because tractate Bava Basra is the longest volume in the Talmud. A scribe may write a bill of sale for the seller even if the buyer is not with him when the seller presents his request. In a case of this kind, once this buyer takes possession of the land, then the deed will be acquired wherever it is. And this is that which we learned in another Mishnah, Tractate Kedushin, page 26a. Property that does not serve as a guarantee, meaning movable property as opposed to land. Property that does not serve as a guarantee can be acquired together with property that serves as a guarantee, meaning land. Right? So movable property can be acquired along with land when the land is acquired by means of giving money, or by means of giving a document, or by means of taking possession. This shows that a bill of sale can be transferred without any act of acquisition performed for the document, and certainly through words, which presents a difficulty to Rav Ashi's opinion, who said that you can't transfer words through other words. So the Gemara answers, acquiring a bill of sale by means of acquisition of land is different. You are acquiring something. The bill of sale is just going along with it, as it is similar to acquisition through an item and not by means of words. And the reason is that money, which cannot be acquired through symbolic exchange, meaning a pro forma act of acquisition affecting the transfer of ownership of an item, like when I sell you a field, I can't hand you the field, but I can hand you a handkerchief in front of witnesses, and we say I'm hereby using this kinyan, the symbolic transfer of the handkerchief, to symbolize that I'm right now handing over control of this land to you because you purchased it from me. And this is the moment at which you are acquiring that land. So again, the reason is that money, which cannot be acquired through symbolic exchange, nevertheless can be acquired by means of land. Meaning the money hasn't changed hands, but right now I'm giving you the land and we're agreeing that you're going to pay me 1,000 dinars for it. Okay, so now I've given you the land, you owe me those 1,000 dinars. Those 1,000 dinars are mine. And this is like that incident when Rav Papa had deposited 12,000 dinars with Beilis. People were watching it for him in the city of Bei Chozai. And he transferred ownership of the money that was in Bei Chozai and owed to him by those merchants. He transferred that right to receive it to his agent, Rav Shmuel Bar Acha. And he did that right to receive it by means of the threshold of his house. He sold him the threshold of the house, so that's a piece of land, small, but a piece of land. And he said, along with this threshold that I'm selling you, which he could, Rav Baracha could sell it back to him later. But right now he's selling him the threshold of his house. And along with it, he's selling movable property. And what is the movable property that he's selling? The right to collect this debt, the right to receive 12,000 dinars in Bei Chazai. So that when his agent went to Bei Chazai, he wasn't just saying, I'm collecting for my master, for my principal, I'm collecting money that is owed to me. I'm showing up to collect my debt. So that's how he transferred that right to Rav Shmuel Baracha. And when Rav Shmuel Baracha came from Bei Chazai, having collected the money, the 12,000 dinars, Rav Papa was so happy that he was bringing him his money that he went out all the way to Tavach to greet him. Nice, colorful, successful little agency. Now, the Mishnah teaches that when one sells a ship, he has sold various other items, but he has not sold the slaves. In the time when slavery existed and slaves were used to propel a galley, a ship powered by oars, nor the packing bags that are used to, organize the cargo, nor the antikei. But when one said to the buyer, you are purchasing the ship and all that it contains, all of these items are sold as well. So the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of the word antikei? And Rav Papa said, it means the merchandise that is on the ship. This merchandise is not sold together with the ship unless they specify that I'm selling you the merchandise which is currently on board the ship. And with that, we conclude our discussion of Mishnah number 1 here in chapter 5. Now we're going to open and conclude, God willing, a very short Mishnah and discussion. Mishnah number 2. One who sold a wagon has not sold the mules that pull the wagon. Similarly, if one sold the mules, he has not sold the wagon. One who sold a yoke, hatzemed, has not sold the oxen, and one who sold the oxen has not sold the yoke. Rabbi Yehuda says the sum of money indicates what one has sold. How so? The buyer said to the seller, sell me your yoke for 200 dinars. Since it is a known matter that a yoke is not sold for anything like 200 dinars, he clearly intended to purchase the oxen as well. He was using the word yoke to, communicate that he's selling them 2 oxen yoked by this yoke. So I'm selling you a yoke of oxen. Would it suggest if the charge was 200 dinars, which is a fair price for a yoke and 2 oxen, it must be that he's selling him a yoke and 2 oxen and not just a yoke, for which a fair price would be much more like 10 dinars than 200. The Gemara answers, So Rabbi Yehuda says the sum of money indicates what one is sold. How so? If he says, sell me your yoke for 200 dinars, since it is a known matter that a yoke is not sold for 200 dinars, he clearly intended to purchase the oxen as well. That was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. And the rabbis say, meaning the majority who disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, they say the sum of money is not proof. It could be that he's selling the yoke for some extraordinary amount of money. There could be a reason for that. We don't know for sure just from the amount of money. We would have to have further evidence. That concludes Mishnah number 2. Now the Gemara. Rav Tachlifa from the west, i.e. Eretz Yisrael, taught in a Baraisa before Rabbi Abahu. If one sold a wagon, he has sold the mules together with it. Rabbi Abahu asked, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah that he has not sold the mules? Rav Tachlifa said to him, well then, should I erase this Baraisa because it is incorrect? And Rabbi Abahu said to him, no, do not erase the Baraisa. You should explain that your Baraisa is referring to a case where the mules are fastened to the wagon. In that situation, one who purchases the wagon receives the mules as well because it's clear that what was being sold was the wagon with the mules. And in a situation where that's not clear, then we would rely on the Mishnah, which says that if you say I'm selling you a wagon, then I'm selling you a wagon. I'm not selling you a wagon with mules. And likewise, if I'm selling you mules, I'm not selling you mules with a wagon, I'm selling you mules. The Mishnah teaches one who sold a yoke has not sold the oxen. And the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda disagree over whether the sum of money proves exactly what was sold or not. The Gemara analyzes their disagreement. What are the circumstances? If we say that the Mishnah is referring to a place where they call a yoke tzimda and they call oxen bakar, so it is obvious that he sold him a yoke and did not sell him the oxen because yoke and oxen have different words associated with those meanings. But if the Mishnah is referring to a place where they also call oxen tzimda, then the seller sold him everything. In other words, if you're in a place where a pair of oxen is commonly referred to as a yoke of oxen, well, then it was clear that this buyer and seller knew what they were talking about when they said, I'm selling you a yoke of oxen. That's what they meant, 2 oxen. And the Gemara explains it is necessary to state this in a place where they call a yoke tzimda and call oxen bakar. Even there it's necessary to say this. But they also, because in such a place, there may also be those who call oxen tzimda. In other words, people are using the words in different ways, even within the same locale. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that the sum of money indicates whether he purchased a yoke of oxen, or whether he purchased a yoke or the oxen. And the rabbis hold that the amount of money does not serve as proof. And the Gemara asks, but if the amount of money does not serve as proof, then in a case where the buyer paid 200 dinars and received only a yoke, let the transaction be nullified, because what else would he have been buying? And now we're getting a head start on tomorrow. We're on page 78a, and I'm almost done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. And if you would say that the rabbis do not hold that in a case of exploitation of less than 1/6, one must return the money, and that if it was more than 1/6, there is nullification of the transaction. We've seen that law before, right? That in many cases in commercial setting, if somebody overpays or underpays by more than 1/6 of the correct value, we set it aside as a mistaken transaction, and we could just undo the transaction. People just get back what they put into it because it was a mistake. However, we don't apply this law of nullification in a case where what was bought or sold does not have a market price, where things have unique prices, and we can't say whether it was over or undercharged by 1/6. And if you would say that the rabbis do not hold that in a case of exploitation of less than 1/6, one must return the money, and that if it was more than 1/6, there is nullification of the transaction, can it be maintained that they do not accept these laws? But didn't we learn in a Mishna, tractate Bava Mitzia, page 56b, that Rabbi Yehuda says, even in the case of one who sells a Torah scroll, an animal, or a pearl, these items are not subject to the laws of exploitation because they have no fixed price. It's whatever deal somebody can strike. There's not a regular market price for these things. And the rabbi said to him, the early sages stated that only these items listed earlier in the Mishnah, i.e. land and slaves and documents, are not subject to the laws of exploitation. But animals are subject to those laws, and therefore the rabbis should agree that the sale of the yoke would be nullified if you sold just a yoke for 200 dinars when a yoke is only worth about 10 dinars. It must be that he meant something else, even if it wasn't the 2 oxen. Therefore, we nullify the transaction. And the Gemara answers, what is the meaning of the Mishnah that teaches that according to the opinion of the rabbis, the sum of the money is not proof? This means that the transaction is nullified. So we do nullify it. And if you wish, say instead that the sale of the yoke is not nullified, because when the sages spoke of exploitation and the nullification of a transaction, they meant that these laws apply only in a case where the difference in price is in an amount about which one could be mistaken and believe that this is the correct price. But when the difference in price is so great a sum that one could not be mistaken, then this sale is not subject to the laws of exploitation. Because in that case, one must say that the buyer gave so much extra money to the seller, not because he thought he was paying the right price, but because he wanted to give a gift to the seller. Like when, a parent buys lemonade from his child's lemonade stand and gives him $20 for the last cup of lemonade at the end of the day, right? It's a gift. It's not because the cup of lemonade might be worth $20. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 2. We'll pick it up tomorrow, God willing, with Mishnah number 3 here in chapter 5. A couple of questions. Sharon, if someone buys the oxen with the term a yoke of oxen, does he also get the yoke as well, or just the oxen? Sounds like you get the yoke as well, but from what we read, I think it's also going to have to be investigated a little bit. What is the local custom? Everything goes according to the local custom. So what you have is, like, the local custom is when somebody says a yoke of oxen, they're selling the 2 oxen with the yoke. That's a pretty definitive answer. The question would be if we have mixed customs. Some people have the local custom that a yoke of oxen means 2 oxen without the yoke. Some people have the custom that a yoke of oxen means 2 oxen with the yoke. Some people just mean the yoke, right? And so we'd have to investigate what's going on here to ascertain better what the parties intended when they entered into this deal. Sharon also says, because my mother died in Elul, her whole Shiva in my dad's house, my kids, who were young at the time, were awoken daily, literally in their case, to the call of the shofar. Wow. It is this connection of memory that makes the shofar blast so significant in a connection for me with my mom's yahrzeit. Plus, my mother was very engaged in Jewish study with our rabbi up until the time of her passing, which she alluded to in her eulogy, making this even more significant. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story, that background, Sharon. And I'm glad I didn't blow it, and that I did blow it as best as I could. I think we got a good shofar blast out, and may it storm the heavens and resonate there with our learning and your love and your dedication to your mom and your grandmother and your uncle, and lift them that much more higher in the world of souls. What an incredible thing that we have this ability to be of benefit to our loved ones who have passed on, who are in the world of souls, that when we do righteous deeds in this world, in their name, some of that merit accrues to them in that world. It's an incredible opportunity. I encourage all of us to take advantage of it. Have a great night, and God willing, see you tomorrow, Monday at the regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific. All the best.